Okay, everyone. So we're just going to take a moment before we get started to just find ourselves in the space together. Eyes open or closed. Bring an awareness to the breath. Watching the breath flow in and out. Finding quiet presence in the body. Reconnecting with ourselves and the space around us. Just observing your environment, hearing anything around you, perhaps feeling sensations in the body. And whenever you're ready, you can join us back here. Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of Living in Alignment. My name is Kirshnee, and I will be your host today. And today we are joined by a very special guest. So please join me in welcoming Alexis Gibson, who is
Hi,
a
everyone.
Alexis is a corporate leader with a strong background in HR and mental health and well-being. She is a passionate advocate for animals and a globetrotter of note. I've come to know Alexis as someone who is a curious and effective problem solver that demonstrates great compassion and love for others. Alexis is a daughter, a sister, partner, cat mom, and most importantly, a very dear friend. Welcome, Alexis.
Oh, thank you, Kirshnee.
So we've only been talking about this, what, for like 4 years or something. Yay for us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I guess the origins were are beginning in the mindful movement or mindful moments sessions that we did together.
Yes, absolutely. Good times indeed. So I'm really excited to have you here today and for us to just connect on this topic, which I haven't introduced yet. So today, Alexis and I are going to be speaking on the topic of the human obsession with perfection and how not to get trapped in its snares. So, yeah, with the mindfulness movement and stuff that we were kind of involved in initially, this seems like a very interesting topic to kind of get into, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think perfectionism is a very deep subject. And you might not think that you're a perfectionist, um, or you might not think you have those tendencies, but like when you really sit back and analyze yourself, I think sometimes you can see, oh, actually, I am trying to be too perfect here. I am trying to, um, yeah, I'm really like trying to control things here. And really with perfectionism, a lot of people think it's like a good thing, but in reality it's actually something that holds us back. So I think it's a great topic, and yeah, looking forward to exploring it with you.
Nice. Yeah, and you've already just like started to get my juices flowing here about the topic itself. Because when initially I pitched you this idea for kickstarting the pilot with this topic, I didn't necessarily appreciate how broad it actually was. Like, of course, I would consider myself a perfectionist in many aspects of my life, a recovering perfectionist, let me say. Um, Yeah, so like, I mean, I just thought I was extra in that way, but then actually getting into it, finding that it's actually quite pervasive in society, which is not surprising given the conditions under which we operate these days, but also really quite sinister. Given that it's such a broad topic, though, maybe it's a good place to start to understand what your definition of perfectionism is. How would you define it in your own experience?
So for me, like what I think in terms of perfectionism is when you have a certain, I guess, idea within your head of what you have to achieve or what you need to do or how you like things done. But the problem with that is that's you personally. That's not how other people are going to operate. So I think perfectionism is like different for everyone because
Mm,
it's going to depend on the person in terms of like what they think is the perfect outcome for, whatever they're doing. So I think it's like really, you know, more of a thing that is personal to you, and how you like to see things done and how you operate, and the end result you're expecting. But that's going to be different for everyone. So that can cause clashes in terms of like relationships, because everyone has a different perspective. So that's probably how I would define it.
mm. In preparation for today's session, I actually went out and asked a few people what did they define as perfectionism, and the second question was if they thought of themselves as perfectionists. And I suppose maybe in a way, I assumed that I would go out and I would get like this neat data set that I can come back and be like, yeah, 8 out of 10 people said this, and like, very clean. But to your point, actually, I did find that a lot of people's definition of perfectionism, although there were like red threads, their definitions were uniquely colored by their individual experience of life, their upbringing, their social status, and so forth. So that I found like quite interesting. Um, and the second point where I asked people if they would consider themselves perfectionist, I didn't really expect people to come back and be like, yeah, they actually did. But in this instance, most of the people that I spoke to actually did consider themselves perfectionist. But what was interesting in that instance as well was that it wasn't perfectionist in a broader sense of like living life, but in specific, nuanced kind of aspects of how they live. So maybe like a person would be a perfectionist at work, or a person would be a perfectionist in the kitchen, for example. So I'm wondering, like, how does perfectionism show up in your life, if it does at all? Do you find some sort of similarity in that kind of idea, that it might show up in specific segments of life, perhaps?
It's something you have to really reflect upon. Like when you mentioned the kitchen, when I start cooking, yeah, I like to, yeah, I'm trying to perfect the thing. So I was like, I find like cooking like art, like something creative, and you want to make it perfect and delicious. And the rare times I actually cook. But when I do, I'm like, I got to make this perfect, right? And I'm going to try many different varieties of how to make this thing, and then I'm going to find the perfect way to make it. But then other times, say like in terms of work, I think that's where perfectionism gets in the way because you have an understanding in your head of how you want things to be done,
Hmm.
and then that reality or expectation, it doesn't live up to your expectations, because obviously everyone's different. And that's when you can feel like irritated or you're like frustrated, maybe by the people working around you. But it's because you've got this certain idea of perfectionism in your head that obviously not everybody has, everyone's different. Um, so I think, yeah, like reflecting, I find that sometimes I can do that at work. I just maybe expect, okay, oh, this should be done in a certain way. And then it doesn't turn out that way. But then I think, okay, yeah, probably the fault lies with me because I should be the one maybe making my expectations clearer and then aligning them. Um, and then in other ways, I am definitely not a perfectionist. I'm pretty messy. I'm pretty messy. And yeah, like I'm not one of like my partner like is like, oh God, what are you doing? You just chuck your stuff all over the place. And he's the kind of guy like he makes the bed every morning nice and neat. And I'm like more chaotic than that
Yeah.
um, in my living space. But sometimes I can go into phases where, oh, I need to make everything perfect in the living space and like, So yeah, it comes and goes. Yeah, so it shows up in different areas of my life. And I guess being aware of it is something that you need to, yeah, keep on, top of your mind so that you can, is it detrimental? It doesn't have to be like absolutely perfect. We can do 80/20. It's not a, it's not something that you should let ruin your life, right?
Right. And it can actually, I mean, it can, these control issues can sometimes get away with us. But I think it's a nice opportunity now to maybe explain to the audience as well about the different types of perfectionism, because what we want to acknowledge is that perfectionism in itself isn't all bad, right? To Alexis's point now, it can help us to like raise the bar, focus on our personal growth, and inspire us in new ways. So the challenge then is when perfectionism actually becomes maladaptive. And this would tend to, like Alexis suggested, manifest as an internal pressure that would then be like maybe self-critical, a little obsessed with getting things right, perhaps some, heavy sprinkle of the desire to control situations and outcomes, and yeah, sometimes just doing nothing because that would be overwhelming for me too, to just have to worry about things all of the time.
Yeah. So
So, yeah, I
we
mean,
have,
it's like, and it's interesting that you say that like different people they not only experience it differently, but they also have things that they value that are different. And so what might make you a perfectionist in a work situation, for example, might not be something that the next person values enough to even bother about. So they're just going to be like, what are you doing? This is not necessary. And you like really value getting that thing right. So would take the extra effort and be really diligent about it because it matters a little too much to you.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I've got a post-it note on my I put it on my desktop saying progress, not perfection.
Oh, I like
Because
that.
yeah, so that really struck with me because we can beat ourselves up so much, right? Like, oh, if we're trying to be perfect, we're going to feel bad if we can't actually, meet the things that we're expecting of ourselves. But if we're making progress and we recognize that, then we can feel that's something that is rewarding and we'll feel better about ourselves by saying, okay, so maybe I didn't do this so great today. Maybe I didn't do what I wanted to do. But actually, looking back on this, I've improved by doing this, doing that. And I am making progress towards what my, end goal is. I don't have to be perfect because I think that's impossible, to
Yeah.
be honest.
And it's a bit boring, to be honest. So part of the reason why it's taken me so long to actually get to this place where we did this pilot session together and had this conversation is because in a way I felt it needed to be just right. And if I take a look at, because I mean, we human beings, we have this natural ability, or not ability, but inclination to compare ourselves to other people. It's just how we're built as social creatures. So I go on and I have a look at all of these other podcasts because every person has a podcast these days. And, they've got like these fancy studios that they rent out. They've got like these really cool equipment and dressed really well and have really fancy guest speakers. And in a way, I look up to that and I'm like, shit, okay, do I need to invest in all of that before I even get started? That's an obvious no, but in my mind, it feels like that's what I need to do in order to be successful in this space because that's what success looks like. Um, Eventually, I just had to be like, you know what, F it. I'm just gonna do this thing from my bedroom. We're gonna have a chat and just see how it goes because there's no way to make this look like anyone else's. And I wouldn't want it to look like that either. So it's almost like I had to recondition myself in that space to just be like, you can make this however you want it to. It doesn't need to look like everyone else's or everything else in that kind of sense.
Yeah, I guess,
So
and again, that like leads back to progress, not perfection, because like if you're aiming for perfection, you're never going to progress in making a podcast, you know, because you're going to be like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, but you're just holding yourself back, and you have to start somewhere, really.
yeah, the master at anything was a beginner at some point. So it's helpful to
Exactly.
remember the progress. I like it. Progress rather than perfection. That's a really good way to kind of summarize that whole thing. Even if we try to get it just right, it's still probably going to suck in some way.
Exactly. I'd be like, oh, Kirshnee, what are you doing? What is that?
I'm just wondering from your perspective, are there any moments where perfectionism took away from something you really wanted to do?
Hmm. God, that's a tough one. For me, I think like the main thing that springs to mind is like your ideas of perfectionism can maybe be damaging to relationships with others. Um, because you have like a certain expectation in your mind, and that is not clear to the other person. I think that's when it becomes difficult, and that's when it becomes challenging. And we have a tendency maybe to think, oh, I'm right, and then looking, but you have to like pause, take a stop, and then try and look at it from the other person's point of view, and see where they're coming from. Because again, I think it's just like, everyone has such a different idea of what good is.
Mm. I think in a way, when I think about perfectionism, I think about myself. I mean, there might be other people involved and stuff, that I want to get it right for or want to prove something to or whatever, but it's about me. And I love this idea of like remembering that our behaviors, no matter how internalized they might seem, also have an impact on the people around us and our ability to connect with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think it can be like, yeah, definitely create conflicts when you're not on a mutual level of understanding, in terms of like outcomes of perfectionism or whatever. I don't know. Maybe you're in a relationship with somebody and they don't like you putting the coffee cup somewhere, or they don't like the way you arrange your fridge, or like
Yeah.
there's all these like different elements to people, and they all want something done in a certain way.
Okay. So there's this idea that perfectionism also comes with a very stern inner critic, which is a voice in our head that tells us that we can or can't do something or that we can't do it very well, whatever that might manifest as. And I'm wondering, Alexis, if there are moments where you notice the voice of your inner critic the loudest.
Mm. Yeah, I'm just thinking, so like in terms of psychology, there's a lot of sort of theory behind, the voices in your head, and the inner critic. Um, like, I don't know if you've heard of transactional analysis and schema therapy, but inside of us, we have all different ego states, like parent, adult, child. And these kind of all stem from, how we've been brought up, our childhood, and then messages that we receive. And they're all like, none of them are wrong, but we can all be in different ego states at different times. So sometimes you might be in your child state, you might be in your adult state, or and there are different types of the, like, say, parent state, which is the critical parent or the healthy parent. So sometimes the critical parent can come out in your ego state, and then that's when you hear those negative thoughts in your head, like, oh, you can't do this, you're never going to achieve this. So like I will go to the worst case scenario
Mm.
probably and be like, oh my God, I'm gonna get fired. Oh my God, I'm gonna die. So like,
Yeah.
yeah, I can easily, and I do have anxiety or experience anxiety, and yeah, I can easily go into these like, okay, worst case scenario, but is that going to happen? Probably not. But yeah, uh, whatever ego state I'm in can get triggered and push me down that road of, you know, the biggest catastrophe that could happen to me. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but
Hmm. I think it does pretty well. And thanks for educating us a little on those ego states. I suppose maybe for me, perhaps I'm maybe more conscious of one overwhelming voice, and that's the one that I would focus on. But yeah, now that you mention it, there's also a soothing voice, the parent that's caring, the child that's scared.
or the happy child that's creative and
Okay, the joyful
playful,
one as well, one that really wants to come out but doesn't get an opportunity to.
not
So I
allowed.
don't allow the
Put
op.
them in a cage.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's good to remember we are multifaceted beings, and it's really important for us to be able to embrace all aspects of ourselves. But the question one would have to ask, particularly when talking about a topic like this, is how do we ever embrace those different facets of ourselves if we don't give ourselves the opportunity to really know who we are? Because perfectionism is really telling ourselves that there's something wrong with how we are right now, that we need to change something about ourselves to be better. There's this self-critical aspect within ourselves that says, I am not good enough. And that is why something within ourselves says that we need to be better or we need to improve in order to be accepted.
Mm. And again, then I think like there's a lot of work you can do in terms of like if we're thinking about say meditation, doing inner child work, because we all have that inner child within ourselves, and that inner child wants to be like soothed and comforted. And then if we're speaking to ourselves in a critical or negative way, we're actually hurting like that little, little Kirshnee, that little Alexis. And we've got to learn how to actually comfort them and soothe them, and practice self-compassion,
Mhm.
because, at the end, and like at the end of the day, like we're pretty much, yeah, responsible for ourselves, and learning how to give us or give ourselves that nourishment, like the self-compassion, looking after the inner child. It, we have to learn how to do it ourselves, right? So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of techniques, but it takes work and it takes practice.
And consistency.
And yeah, consistency, and also realization, because sometimes when you can be beating yourself up and telling yourself you're the worst person in the world, and until you realize that that's what you're doing, and actually that's not the reality, and that you can do something about that, and you can give yourself compassion. Um, yeah, I think that's one of the, you've got to catch yourself. You've got to like stop yourself and be like, stop hurting yourself. Like, why are you self-harming? Why are you hurting yourself?
Yeah, sometimes it's hard for me to tell the difference between my own voice and when the critical voice comes in because it can be so ingrained in our conscious interaction with ourselves all of the time.
Yeah, and it's like, it's like commonly said, like, look at the way you speak it to yourself, and then think about your best friend or your partner or your child. Would you speak to them like the way you speak to yourself? No, you wouldn't.
Hopefully not.
Like, hopefully not. I hope you wouldn't. Yeah. So we have to have that kind and compassion and caring for ourselves, I think.
Mm.
Um, and internally, yeah, we battle ourselves.
Why do you think it's so hard for us to show compassion to ourselves rather than to other people sometimes?
I think again, probably because of, we're aiming for something that's we think is perfect. And if we don't think that we can achieve that, or we don't meet our standards, we beat ourselves up. Whereas like with others, we can see objectively, externally, their situation, and you know give them advice, and then give them like listen to them, give them empathy. But when it comes to yourself, it's, yeah, I don't think I have an answer really to that. I really don't know.
There's actually something that you mentioned now about like being objective to another person's experience. And I think maybe that is quite important. The distance that we seem to have, maybe emotionally or mentally, from a situation in order to be able to look at it and be like, okay, I can see, the bigger picture. But with ourselves, perhaps there might be less of that objectivity, perhaps.
Yeah, I guess because you're so deeply ingrained within, your psyche and yourself, you can't separate from that. It's
Mhm.
very difficult to separate. And then that's when the self-judgment comes in.
Mm, mm. I went out looking for some information on perfectionism to understand specifically scientifically, like around perfectionism and perfectionistic tendencies. And some studies done, at least one study in particular, was reflecting that more than half of the participants demonstrated perfectionistic tendencies, with the more likely groups affected being youth and women. And I mean, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure out why that would be the case. But I suppose the thing that I want to pull in here to this conversation is in terms of technology, we are probably more connected now than we've ever been before. I mean, what started as smoke signals on hills have now become instant messages and video calls. Like, we can't actually get disconnected. It's really hard for us to be disconnected in the world right now. So the
Mm.
natural impact of that is the fact that we see a lot more than we would in our confines of our little spaces at home. We can pick up our phone and have the world at our fingertips. Social media like TikTok and Instagram. I know you and I are not on those channels.
Well, I am there, but I just don't look at them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I don't even put myself in that situation.
I turn off all my notifications. I'm like, I don't want all
Why
this like bombardment
do
of
you
like,
even have it?
yeah, I'm gonna get like one of those old school Nokia phones. You know?
3310 for life.
Yeah,
Oh my
exactly.
goodness. One of the things that I've noticed is like, the rise of this influencer culture and things like, I don't know, trad wives and just like rappers and all of these unrealistic beauty standards that are out there right now. How do you think that this all plays a part in conditioning us into believing we need to be different? And
Uh,
yeah, just not embrace ourselves in our uniqueness.
yeah, well, like I kind of feel terrible for people who are younger
Yeah,
because
man. Real.
because like I don't really engage in that because, like, there's a lot of studies that show that there's a negative impact on your mental health when you're comparing yourself to other people, and social media has a huge impact on that because it's all fake. All these accounts, and people are just trying to project perfection again, but it's not real. So why would you want to depress yourself by looking at that? I mean, yeah, I guess for me, like probably you can use it for informational stuff or
Hmm.
like funny videos or
Oh, yeah.
you like if you like cats or dogs or like, cute stuff, things that like, boost you. If you're like looking at other people and they're projecting like a perfect image of their life, that's not reality because I don't think anyone has a perfect life. And well, if they do, good for them. That's amazing. But a lot of this stuff you have to realize is all staged and they're using it to make money. Um, so yeah, it's not something that really interests me to be a part of or to, be engaged with. And I think like, younger generations, that's how they probably feel like, oh, that's how I go and make my money now. I become an
Mm.
influencer. I go on TV. Like whatever, get into like a reality TV program. And a lot of the times it doesn't end up well. So yeah, I don't know. The future is going to be very interesting because, yeah, who knows what the next generation is going to face.
Specifically after COVID, I've noticed this, I suppose, more heightened presence in social media. Then maybe I've become more conscious of it now after COVID. But yeah, it just feels like there's some sort of surreal aspect to cyberspace, which I mean, technically there is, but it's like everything that goes on there is just somehow curated or perfected or designed for a specific audience to target them in a specific way, with a message that's not always positive,
Mm, yeah, yeah, it's not realistic, really.
not
So,
realistic, and it really just it really just turns on ourselves as individuals to be like, am I that bad that I can't appreciate that I might have something real to bring to the table here? Like, everyone looks the same, everyone behaves the same, everyone even sounds the same. Maybe you do need someone like
yeah.
me at the table.
The future scares me, to be honest. But who knows how long we'll be around for. But you know,
I don't know if if I see that comment as a good thing or a bad thing, the way that you just said it.
I mean, well, I guess technology is rapidly, it's going so rapidly. With AI and everything. Now you have AI influencers. So
Mm. Oh, which is like a whole
like
other level because
AI accounts.
sure.
Yeah,
Oh my
so
goodness.
maybe I'll just run away to a commune and go and live there. Like
Well, I might join you.
and
Definitely join you there.
live off the land with no technology.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, one of the things that I wanted to us to talk about, I think that like the way that we've been conditioned is that we think about our imperfections as bad. But what if we thought of our imperfections as being opportunities to teach us something? And I am wondering what your take might be on that point specifically.
Mm. No, I think that's a really good point. But again, you need to have like self-awareness, right? To get to that point where you view an imperfection as something that can help you grow. So I think you need to, yeah, you have to go on a journey, right? Stop beating yourself up about your imperfection, then view it as something you can grow from, and have that self-awareness to actually do that. I don't think it's necessarily easy.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think it's a very deep question.
Yeah, maybe something we can take away to reflect on individually as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I mean, the
Um,
other thing I was thinking about now, like for myself, is again to our earlier point in the conversation where we say that your values and my values are different. We don't see the world the same way. It's colored by our experiences. And so when I think of my imperfections, what might look like imperfections to me might actually be really beautiful things to other people. And just because I'm holding myself to an unrealistic standard, it doesn't mean that what I bring to the table is invaluable, or rather, is that the right word? Invaluable, unvaluable.
yeah,
Um,
invaluable.
yeah, it might be that I would like to show up differently or better, um, but it doesn't mean that how I am showing up right now isn't good enough to even just inspire the person next to me. And so maybe our imperfections can actually be like really valuable ways to share with the world ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. So, I mean, I guess it would maybe sitting down, taking an inventory of like what you think are your imperfections,
That's a good one.
and then maybe you could speak to a friend or a coach or a mentor about what you think is an imperfection, because actually a lot of the time, things that you may feel are an imperfection, people actually appreciate and like in you. Um, so I think it's, yeah, seeking other points of view and understanding that, yeah, we're our harshest critics, right? So, and then other people will be like it always surprises me, like if somebody will say to me, "Oh, I love this, Alexis," like da 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 da, and I'm like, "Oh, really? I really did not actually think that was any good at all," you know, like, and I'm like shocked and surprised by hearing that. Um, yeah.
Yeah, also a nice reminder that we don't have to strive for these unrealistic standards because we might actually just be good enough right now as we are. To your point now about this person pointing out something to you that you did really well that you thought was pretty shit. And like it was actually just good enough. And touched people in a way that,
Mm.
like, sometimes when you overstrive to be something different, it gives off also a weird energy. I think people don't relate in it the same or relate to it the same way.
Yeah, then it's not authentic. Yeah. And like I mentioned, I went to Thailand for a month and I did like this whole like holistic healing journey thing. And we would do like group therapy. So a circle of us would sit there, and then one of the exercises was like we pair up, and then each of us had to write down all of the things that we saw good in each, like our observations of that
Oh,
person.
nice.
And I took a picture of it. It's on my phone. I can't, and we're filming from my phone. Can't get it. But anyway, it was just so beautiful because, like, I'd probably known this person for maybe 5 days. So me and him just like spoke to each other about what we felt, what we observed about like each other. And then like the things he said about me, I was just like, oh my God, my heart's melting, like it's so lovely. It's like,
Beautiful.
why can't I see myself like that?
Mm,
You know? Um, yeah, so I think it's so important to have like human connection and like an outside perspective if you are struggling with things like that. But yeah, it was like a beautiful experience. So highly encourage
I love
that
that.
experiment.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. And I think because perfectionism is such an internal process, it really just like dissipates some of the illusion by just bringing in other perspectives.
Mm.
Because we live a lot in the mind space with perfection. It is a lot of like, overanalyzing, self-critical aspects, but it's all inside ourselves. And if we just kind of like maybe soften, introduce, yeah, supportive measures to our process, and specifically to your point, people or practices like meditation and mindfulness, those kind of things really help free ourselves from that snare of
Yeah,
being illusion.
just being like kinder to ourselves, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah, so that to that point, I think maybe we could get clear on how we can help ourselves. What are some of the tools, techniques, methods, ideas that you would suggest people grappling with perfectionism can lean into?
Hmm. Okay, so I would say again, self-awareness. So understanding like, the voice in your head or the thoughts, those thoughts not actually you. So you have to kind of separate yourself. You have to become aware that there is this voice in your mind. You have a monkey mind. You have like this thing going on at you and talking to you, but that's not necessarily you. So you don't have to accept that. You don't have to act on those thoughts. You can let the thoughts like flow through you. You can think about, okay, are these thoughts like helping me? Are they not helpful? If they're not helpful, let them go. Again, obviously meditation, I think is really helpful, and there's so many different types of meditation. So if you want to practice inner child healing or self-compassion, there's a lot of meditations that you can do or find online. And what else? I did have a third point, but I think I forgot it. So that's me being imperfect,
I love it.
forgetting my third point.
I love it. Well, if you do remember your third point, let me know because I do have something to add, and that is just try to disconnect from your phone. I mean, I started the practice of digital detoxing last year when I went for an extended retreat for 40 days. And for just as long, I was without my phone, which was actually a challenge, like off note. Because, when boredom sets in and whatever, the immediate thing we do is reach for our phone. But then with that, we also get this influx of information and opinions and ideas that are actually not ours. And we shove that all in our head. Those things are being processed by our subconscious. So whatever we're watching is what we're thinking about and ingesting and believing in some aspect. We think of things like subliminal messages. Those are the subliminal messages we get every single day by just being overly connected, not just to our phone, but to the internet, to life. So if there's a way that we can limit ourselves, even if it's just for 30 minutes before bed, when you have in family time, no phones, whatever it is, so that we can start to reintroduce a voice that is ours and connecting with people who are supportive and integrated into our lives rather than relying on the world and people that we'll never meet or never know to tell us what we should be or do with ourselves.
Yeah, be mindful of the content that you consume. And yeah, like my phone stresses me out sometimes. So like sometimes I just want to like yeah, put it away and not look at messages. And it's like, ugh, my phone is causing me anxiety.
Yeah, yeah. Did you remember your third thing?
No.
Or do you have a new third thing?
Do I have a new third thing? No, not really. Hang out with your cat, hang out with your
Ah,
dog, go
yes.
to nature, go hang out in nature. Yeah, yeah. Because like a lot of the stuff a lot of the stuff around us is it's not real, right? It's a construct that can be created in this media and blah blah blah, and then letting it into our minds, getting back to nature, being with the ones you love. Then that's you being the real you, right?
Hmm.
And love yourself, right? I think that was one of the things that I think it's Tara Brach. She's a mindfulness meditation teacher. So she talked about her like what she started doing in the morning was just like to get over, criticizing herself. She would wake up in the morning and she's like, okay, it felt a bit fake at the time, but like just saying to yourself, I love you,
Hmm.
every morning. And at first it felt weird, but she said the more you do it, like it really like impacts you, just telling yourself, I love you, I care for you, helps get rid of that critical, voice in your head. And now my cat is here.
It's like, hello.
He's like, yes, I like that one too.
Well, on that beautiful note of reminding ourselves that we are perfect as we are, I just want to take a moment to thank you, Alexis, for your time and your energy and your presence today. This has been such a beautiful conversation and so resonant with like everything that is reflective in our lives at this time. Yeah, any last words from you before we leave each other?
Well, thank you so much, Kirshnee, for hosting me. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, I don't know where this is going to go. But I want to see you in person
Yes.
sometime soon. So,
We'll definitely make a plan on that front. And when we do, we'll send you guys a short video from when we're together. So,
yeah,
on that note,
it'll be
everybody,
amazing.
thank you. Thank you, Alexis.
Thanks so much, Kirshnee. Take care of yourself. Bye.